The content provided in this program is solely for information purposes. You should always seek advice of physicians, therapists, and other professionals for diagnosis or treatment. Hey, welcome to a new series of interviews with me, Karen Das. The programs making up this series are produced with families in mind, especially those with children diagnosed with some form of neurodisability. In other words, children with special needs. I was very fortunate to have the support of NGOs in compiling research for these shows. It is our hope that we can all become more tolerant, compassionate, and supportive citizens towards those with special needs. The hippocampus is a part of the brain associated with learning. Hippocrates is the well-known Greek physician, dubbed the father of Western medicine, and I'm sure you would have heard, well, some of you anyway, the Hippocratic Oath. When I heard the term hippotherapy, I figured there would be a connection to learning through a therapist, which I later learned involved horses.
Hippo is the Greek word for horse. So the original, it started back in the 50s in Germany, and they called it hippotherapy because the word hippo is horse. So people are confused sometimes when I say hippotherapy, like, is that with hippos? It's like, no, it's horse therapy. So really it means horse therapy. And that's what we're doing, is offering therapy with the use of horses.
And that's why the hippopotamus is called a water horse. A scenic drive through Santa Cruz up the O'Connor Road, Moraca, St. Joseph, lined with cocoa trees and extraordinary landscape, took me to the grounds of Horses Helping Humans, tucked away behind the Ortinola estate. It was there I met with Karen Stollmeyer for a chat on horse therapy and its role in improving lives.
This idea came to me actually quite a few years ago, over 20 years ago, when I was still living in the States, and I was a therapist in the States. I'm a speech pathologist by trade, by first degree. And I was working in the States, but I'm an equestrian from birth, and I'm a horse lover from birth. I came across the field of hippotherapy when I was a therapist working in the States, in Miami, and that's where I got introduced to the field and thought how wonderful that I could marry my profession and my passion. And went to a conference in the States and decided we wanted to try to do that. So Horses Helping Humans was actually born in Miami in 1999 with another lady that I was riding with at the time. But it was very short-lived. The logistics of running this type of business are very complicated, and it only lasted about 3 months. So I shelved the idea thinking, that will never happen again. I don't have those resources. It's just impossible. And went along with life, and I actually retired my speech therapy career, moved back to Trinidad, became a yoga teacher. I did that when I was away, and came back here to Trinidad to teach yoga. And so I've been teaching yoga in Trinidad for the past 15 years, and Bliss Yoga Trinidad is my yoga studio that I've been operating for a long time. 8 years into my return to Trinidad, and I had no horses in my life up until that point, living back here because I was so busy. A horse came up that I knew needed to be adopted. Otherwise, it was going to be put down. And that's one of the side issues, that why we do this is to rescue and save horses, because horses in Trinidad, once they finish racing, don't have much of a life. So being a therapy horse is another option for a horse. It's a way that they can continue to contribute and be cared for in return. So this horse came up for adoption, and it kind of triggered something in me, that one thing led to another. We ended up adopting the horse, and I thought, maybe I can use the horse to do some therapy with a friend of mine whose child had special needs. And one thing led to the next, and here we are 7 years later with 8 horses and lots of children on our schedule doing hippotherapy, among other things that we do here.
Occupational therapy is defined as the use of particular activities as an aid to recuperation from physical or mental illness. Hippotherapy is a form of occupational therapy which has been very successful in many countries and now has a special place here in Trinidad. So, who benefits from this type of therapy at HHH, Horses Helping Humans?
We use it primarily with children with autism, and as well as other special needs. So children with cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, genetic disorders, attention deficit disorder, any type of special needs problem or issue can be addressed using hippotherapy. Aside from the disabilities, though, we use equine therapy, which it's called when it's not used with disabilities. It's equine facilitated therapy for anyone, people with stress or anxiety, depression. They use equine therapy with veterans for post-traumatic stress disorder. They use it with recovering alcoholics and addicts because it helps everyone heal. So being around horses is beneficial for everyone. They're now using it for elderly patients who have Alzheimer's because they're finding that it helps the cognition of elderly people as well. So really for everyone, it is useful and beneficial for anyone.
Well, like others, I have the same question. Why horses? What is it about this animal that makes it such a wonderful tool for therapy?
You don't think that simply riding a horse would have such a profound impact on someone. And the reason it's so healing is because it shifts the brain from a cortisol-filled brain, which is the stress hormone, which everybody's always, there's so much stress in everybody's lives. It shifts the brain to produce oxytocin and dopamine, which are the relaxation hormones. So when we feel that hormone being secreted in the brain, simply because of the movement of the horse, we feel more relaxed and more at peace, and then we feel well. So healing happens simply because the state of mind shifts from one of being stressed to one of feeling relaxed, and that brings a feeling of well-being.
Scientists believe that horses have evolved over the past 50 million years from much smaller creatures. Horses can gallop at around 44 kilometers per hour. In fact, the fastest recorded sprinting speed of a horse was recorded at 88 kilometers per hour. And depending on the breed, horses can weigh up to 500 kilos. Regardless of this, a horse might seem a bit intimidating for some of us, especially a child who encounters one for the first time. So, what is the initial reaction?
It varies from child to child, depending on each child, of course. Most of the children are very curious. Some have absolutely no fear and they will run right up to the animal. Others have a lot of fear and it takes them quite a while to overcome their fear. But what every single child has is curiosity. And underneath their fear and anxiety, they all are curious and they all want to get close to the animal. It just depends on their individual personalities, how quickly that happens. So some it happens the first day, and others it might take a little longer for them to get to the point where they are confident enough to actually touch the animal. But when they finally get to riding, because we actually do a bunch of things before they get to ride the animals. So we do interaction with them, they feed the animals, they groom them, they lead them. So there's a whole lead up to actually getting on the horse. And when they actually get on the horse, the movement, what is so special about hippotherapy is the movement of the horse mimics the movement of a human walking. And what that does is it stimulates the brain in the same manner that would be stimulated by a human walking. And for some of the kids, for instance, the kids who have cerebral palsy, who have difficulty walking, their development is stunted in general, but also because they lack that bilateral movement. So once the child starts to move with that bilateral movement, the brain is stimulated in a way that it helps the brain to integrate the sensory impressions that are coming into that body. Autistic children have a really hard time regulating their inner environment. So the outer environment stresses them out highly because the information that is coming into their nervous systems is highly overwhelming. So they become anxious, they become fearful, they break down in meltdowns, we call them, the behavior tantrums, they scream, they kick, they cry, simply because they can't handle the information that's coming in. Once they get on the horse and that movement starts to regulate their inner system, it calms them down to the point where they can then function, they can focus, they can attend to information in a better way, and then they can learn. So until that point, the children have difficulty learning, and that's why it's so difficult to get them into a school, because the behaviors are so difficult to deal with that teachers aren't trained to deal with that, so they're not prepared to handle those kids in their school. But if the kids were given the right therapy and the right assistance, most of them transform into amazingly teachable children who have enormous potential, huge talents, lots of things that they can contribute as they get older. But unless they're given the right environment for them to thrive, their potential gets lost. So it's actually the movement of the horse that stimulates that inner synchronization of all of their faculties that then allows them to re-enter the world in a much more organized manner.
Is it really as easy as taking a child with special needs to horse therapy?
When people call me, I just say that's the first session we come. We're going to see what the child is presenting with, how they react to the environment, what they do in the session, and then I will give the parent my it's basically an informal assessment of the child. I look and see what their capabilities are, what they're what they're struggling with, and then we devise a plan to go forward with for the child and the parents. And a lot of what I do is education of the parents as to how to take what I do home with them so that they can continue the work that we do here. So I give out a lot of information on homeschooling information, on basically ways how to interact and teach their children, because most of them are not in school, right? And most of them can't afford to be in school, or the schools are not willing to take them.
There's an old saying, prevention is better than cure. Karen Stollmeyer tells us why it's important for parents to start therapy as soon as possible.
I prefer to get young kids, because from 0 to 3, 0 to 5, up to age 5 is when, as a therapist, I have the most impact in that child's developing brain. Once a child with autism passes age 6, the behaviors that they've ingrained to that point are much more difficult to break them out of up until that point. Past age 6, they're so deeply ingrained that to change behaviors is more difficult than if I got that child at 5, 4, or 3, or even 2. The earlier the better. Because once we get that child at a young age, 2, 3, 4, that child will transform completely. Totally. And I've had kids come in who are screaming, biting, kicking, spitting, scratching, slapping, vomiting, doing whatever they can to get out of what they don't want to do. And through the program, some of them are now in school. I have some of them, my worst behaved kids are now like little angels. Some are in regular schools, some in special schools, but they all are functioning at a much higher level than they were before the program.
You're listening to Special Needs with me, Karen Das. My guest is Karen Stollmeyer, co-founder of HHH Horses Helping Humans. Karen Stollmeyer is a certified speech and language pathologist, international registered yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and hippotherapist. In this program, we explore the many ways horses can help in rehabilitation and holistic well-being. Despite the large collection of research and data produced, as well as designated days and events to boost awareness, many people haven't yet quite caught on to autism, the signs, the treatment, and challenges. Horses Helping Humans is one of the many NGOs in Trinidad and Tobago offering help for families and more specifically those with special needs.
I have my team is my husband, Ernie Matthews, who is really the other half of my program. I couldn't do this without him, and he supports everything that we do. He's my right hand. He's built this entire stable, so he is the team, him and I. And then Brittany, who is my full-time assistant, she works with me here, taking care of the horses, doing the therapy, and we have a whole team of volunteers as well. And I have a stable guy, Sean, who looks after the horses when we are not here. So it's 24, it's 7 days a week. The horses have to eat no matter if we're not here, if we don't have therapy, if we don't have funding, the horses have to eat. So it's a constant daily show that needs a lot of hands to sustain it.
So first, there's the evaluation and assessment of the participant, followed by a proper introduction to the horse. Then my next question is, how soon after therapy begins can one see changes taking place?
Well, right away. I mean, you can even just from eye contact, you'll see children if they're looking at something, it interests them, because autistic children will look away. They choose to look away from things that are too stimulating, but if something attracts them, they will look at it. So even just by looking at the horse, we know that and they will sneak little glances, and then even making attempts to touch the horse. Parents will look and go, I can't believe my child is doing that. I can't believe, wow, that they're just in awe when they see the child open up and do things that they will not do in other environments, simply because there's no motivation or stimulation to do so. And for kids with special needs, motivation is key. If you cannot motivate them to push past their disability, you're stuck as a therapist, because the person has to want to do something. To get better, you have to want to do something. So you have to create an environment that is engaging for the child, where they want to put their best effort forward, and that's what happens here. So it happens very quickly. We get rapid changes in these children, simply because after the first couple of sessions, when they realize this is really fun, and when they get on that pony for the first time and they are just blown away. We have kids who scream up until the point they get on the horse, they stop screaming for the ride, and then we get them off and they scream again, simply because the ride was such, so peaceful for them that they're able to engage in that moment. And then over time, the effects of that ride stay longer and longer and longer. So kids will come and their parents will say, wow, they were calm for 2 days after that first session. That's how much it affects the sensory integration of these children. It's amazing. It's profound.
This interview took place just a few feet away from the stables, where horses were just gearing up for feeding time. And trust me, horses mean business when it comes to food. And I guess we all have that in common. However, just as each participant has to have an evaluation done before the start of any therapy, horses too must have their own assessment.
All of our horses, we choose them carefully. When we get calls from the track, or we get broodmares that can't be bred anymore, we go and interview the horses, and I do a thorough check on them. I check their temperaments, I check their soundness, I check how they react when they're touched all over. And then, of course, how they handle being ridden. Once they pass all the tests that we require, in terms of they are calm, they're quiet, they haven't been abused, they don't mind being touched, they have the right personality and temperament, if we have the space, we take them in. And then it takes a while. I work with the horses for a long time, shifting their minds into this space. They get accustomed to what's required of them, they understand the nature of the job. They get accustomed to the types of kids that come around them, and over time they adjust to the job, and then you see how their reaction to the children is actually very special, and they're very gentle with the children, and they're not flustered by the behaviors, the screams. They kind of understand that that's not it's not being directed to them, so they don't need to fear what's happening. So it's a process, though. Everybody has to kind of shift into a new understanding of what's expected from them. We have 8 right now, and 2 donkeys. The kids love them, and we do use them as, part of the attraction.
So for those who might be thinking any ordinary horse can help with special needs, you definitely need to reconsider. Just when there's an ailment that affects a specific part of the body, more than likely you'll visit a specialist to treat that problem. Where therapy is concerned, it's just as important to be knowledgeable about where, what, who, and how that treatment will happen.
You need a certified therapist, speech, physical, or occupational therapist, to call it hippotherapy. There's therapeutic horseback riding that's done by people who maybe teach riding to people with special needs, but that's not therapy. Therapy is goal-oriented. You have a trained therapist setting the goals and working with that child. And then, of course, the safety is always key, and not every horse is suited to this work. And if you just have a horse that's by somebody's farm, and you send anybody by somebody's horse, that person could get seriously damaged, because you have to be very careful in how you approach horses, what horse you do, and it's a lot of very careful thought that goes into everything.
But what goes into the maintenance, not just of the stables, but the real stars of the program?
Well, first of all, you need the space because horses are large and they need room to move around and, just have that space to feel that they are, their life, it has meaning. And a lot of horses are kept in a very small, confined space, which depletes their sense of self. So, first of all, space is key. You need to have land to keep horses. Land that is good for horses, not just any type of land. They eat a lot. They eat... If they were in the wild and grazing, they graze for 15 hours a day, continuously. They are known as continuous feeders. So they eat a lot of grass, plus grain, plus hay. So we need someone to feed them in the morning, in the afternoon. They need to have grass throughout the day given to them. They need to be groomed or bathed every single day. Their coats need seeing about. Their hooves need seeing about. My horses get regular pedicures. I don't. The farrier comes every month to do their feet. They have lovely, nice, well-kept hooves, right? So their needs come first. Because really, if you don't have a happy horse, you don't have a horse. Because that horse then becomes dangerous. And a happy horse is a calm horse. An unhappy horse is a dangerous horse, right? And that unhappy horse is one that's going to show its unhappiness by maybe biting or kicking or doing something to show that it's not happy. A happy horse is a relaxed horse, and a relaxed horse is a willing horse. And then you have a partner. So it's a lot of psychology that goes into getting a therapy horse, because a therapy horse is different than just a strict riding horse. A riding horse, you're just going to go and ride the horse. You want a calm, nice horse to ride, and if you're a good rider, you're going to have a good ride with that horse. But a therapy horse, you need the mind of that therapy horse to be in a particular place. So they must have their proper turnout, they must have enough food, they must be in a mental state of relaxation in order to be effective and safe doing their work.
Now, we've learned about hippotherapy, equine-assisted therapy. We've learned about the horses, the participants, the way therapy works, the upkeep of the area. But I had to ask about the therapist herself. I mean, how often do we really think about the person doing the bulk of the work?
Well, as a therapist, it has taken me to a place where I thoroughly enjoy doing what I do. Because for a while in the past when I was working, therapy is very draining. You have to give a lot of yourself. You have to be the motivator. You're working with parents who are stressed. You're working with children who are stressed. You have to be that cheerleader for everybody. So it can be very draining as a therapist. Emotional burnout is high with therapy, right? Because you have to give so much of yourself. What the horses have done doing it in this manner is I feel like I can do this in depth, it doesn't drain us, it doesn't, we don't get frustrated with it. It's just enjoyable, it's fun for us, it's fun for the kids, it's fun for everybody. We enjoy what we do, we have a great time with the horses and the kids. And what it has helped me is to actually enjoy working with the kids with autism. They're not easy to work with, they are not easy to work with. They require a lot of patience, they require a lot of understanding, and the horses have helped me even become more patient and understanding and compassionate with the children. So it has helped me grow as a therapist to have more capacity, rather than less, which I found before working with the horses as a therapist, I was getting depleted as the years went by. And it's hard to keep up that level of giving when it's a constant give. So the horses help everybody just stay and able to give more.
Some locals like to think of Trinidad and Tobago as progressing towards first world status at maximum speed. And while it's helpful to have a certain level of confidence, we still have some distance to cover, especially with the way we treat with special needs.
I think as a society we are trying to. I think that we are young in the game of disabilities, simply because we haven't progressed to the point that the rest of the world is. And the rest of the world has very advanced facilities for people with disabilities, and they are given high consideration as a prioritized member of their societies. So thought is put into people with disabilities, and the environment is catered so that people with disabilities are included. Just doorways, access points, roads, bathrooms, so that the disabled person doesn't walk into a room and go, I can't get up there, or I can't, where's the bathroom? I can't use that bathroom. That's not an issue in other countries because it's all thought out and everything is laid out so the disabled person can live. They can, without needing help, they can have an independent life. In Trinidad, we still don't have facilities. We don't have, enough support. We don't have enough awareness, and we really need to buck up on that. Not just, and there's a lot of talk. People, in Trinidad like to talk. There's always talk. There's talk about this. There's been talk about this for years. There's been talk about changing things and doing things better, but it doesn't really get off the ground. At Horses Helping Humans, I consider ourselves so fortunate that we have a subvention through the Ministry of Health to provide this service for the kids who are the most vulnerable, the most disadvantaged out there. So I can't say that there's nothing being done, because the government does help through our program. We are so grateful, and the parents that we assist are so grateful for that they can access this service. But for the most part, there's no free therapy. It's very expensive. It's all private paid, which is fine. Everybody, it's a business. You have to pay for therapy. But as a parent, when this is your reality and you have to pay for that therapy, 2 or 3 therapies, 2 or 3 times a week, every week, indefinitely, it's a serious financial burden on most families. So the support needs to be increased. The funding needs to be increased. The opportunities need to be increased. Special schools need to be built. Consideration needs to be given to the kids who can be entered into mainstream school, for them to go to school. Not just shut the doors on these kids in our country, because that's what's being done. And so it's still not where it should be. We have to give these children a chance. We have to give them the chance to be a productive member of our society, and they can. They certainly can. Autistic people are extremely brilliant and extremely talented. So everything has to change here. But we are growing, we're evolving, and the more that ordinary people like you and I, do things to help others in this situation, then it will come to the day when it's no longer, we need to be more aware. It's simply in place, and it's a fact of life now that everybody knows these people are like us. They deserve the same rights that we have, and they own those rights, and they need to be supported in the same manner.
Well, we've come to the end of this program. Here's how you can learn more about hippotherapy and the NGO Horses Helping Humans.
We have a Facebook page and an Instagram page at Horses Helping Humans. On there they can direct message me, or I have a phone number on the page. It's that they can reach me at as well. And just call, send us a message. Come and have an experience. Come and meet the horses and see why horses are such special, powerful animals to help us live our best lives.
Many thanks to Karen Stollmeyer and her husband Ernie Matthews for inviting me to their stables. If you do decide to visit, be sure to check up on Storm Street, Luna, Eleanor, Ginger, Rex and his partner. This has been Special Needs with me, Karen Das. Thank you so much for listening.